Hello everyone and welcome to the inaugural episode of Court Vision with me, your host Jack Guthrie, where we'll be taking a deep dive into the world of the British Basketball League week on week. So what's coming up on today's show? We take a look at the latest scores from Sunday's round of fixtures, including big wins from Plymouth and Sheffield, also having a look to see where this leaves the league table. And we look at the latest news in the last couple of weeks from the BBL, with coaches being the focal point, especially in the last 2 weeks. We'll cover everything from Manchester to Minnesota, milestones, and making it into European competition. As everyone's going to be new around here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. Also hit the notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and let's start some conversations both down in the comments and over on my Twitter at @JGuthrieSport. So let's kick off the first show with a little look back at Sunday's matches, starting off with Plymouth Raiders, who comfortably beat Glasgow Rocks 92-67 to put them up to 10-8 for this season. In this game, Raiders didn't have Ashley Hamilton or Prince Ebay, so relied a lot on their bench and younger stars, where actually Denzel Ubiaro thrived in this game, matching his career high of 18 points, and Will Neighbour continuing the great form that he's shown recently, getting 16 of his own. Despite strong performances from Christian Keeling with 16 points and Issa Brandon against his former team with 15 points, Glasgow Rocks seem to be in a bit of a rut at the moment and struggling for form. They still find themselves at the bottom of the table, now with a record of 2 wins and 13 losses. London Lions travelled to South Yorkshire for a clash with quote-unquote trash team Sheffield Sharks, who ended up beating them 83-72, despite some big performances from players DeAndre Liggins and Justin Robinson. Liggins finished with a 25-point and 10-rebound double-double, while Justin Robinson also added 17 points. But the bench didn't seem to be much help in that game, as they only scored 9 points. Yep, you heard that right. 9 points. Don't take any credit away from Sheffield in this game though, because they were excellent. Jeremy Hemsley and Antoine Lillard both combined for 41 points on the night, and there was also a huge defensive effort from Bennett Koch off the bench. He finished with 11 points and 6 rebounds, and like I say, he did quite literally everything defensively for them. This win means the Sheffield Sharks are now up to 10-7 in the league, only now behind London Lions on losses, who now stand at 10-4. Worcester Wolves fans have been on a rollercoaster ride, to put it mildly, over the past weekend, with 2 games against Leicester Riders with 2 very different results. Firstly, losing to Leicester with the final shot in the game, which just so happened to be a buzzer beater to lose that one. And then on Sunday, coming back and winning with a buzzer beating shot in overtime from Lamar Kimball. That result was only Leicester's second loss in the league this season, after a huge performance from the Americans on the Worcester Wolves roster. Brandon Anderson finished with 21 points, Mike Parks finished with a 15-point, 10-rebound double-double, and Lamar Kimball finished with 17 points and obviously got the game winner. Riders guard Gino Crandall continued with his potential MVP winning performances, finishing with 20 points off of 70% shooting, including 100% from the free throw line and 100% from downtown. Like I said, that was only Leicester's second loss this season, so they stay at the top of the BBL league standings, going 14-2, whereas Worcester are now looking to solidify themselves in the playoff spots. They move up to 6-9. Surrey and Cheshire played out an incredibly close game that only came down to 1 score, with the Scorchers taking it 76-74 after a game-winning block than none other than, you guessed it, killer Cam Hildreth. There were big performances for Surrey coming from Tony Hicks, who finished with 15 points, 5 boards and 7 assists in over 38.5 minutes played, which is ridiculous, but also Ryan Richards, the original geezer, coming up with 21 points and 6 boards. There were also some big performances in Cheshire's point of view, despite only having 8 available players for that game. Caron Ross, Jimbo Lull and Matthew Bryan and Manning all managed to get into double figures and scoring. Surrey have now moved to 4-10 in the league and are looking to make that late push for a playoff bid, while Cheshire's run has taken a slight dip in form, now 8-9, despite the fact that Matthew Bryan and Manning has quite frankly single-handedly changed that side. Sunday's final fixture also brought us another very exciting match between Bristol and Manchester, with the Flyers taking it 93-89, with 6 of their players getting into double digits for points. The game was dominated by the combination of Josh Wiltshire and Marc Steutel. Wiltshire finished with 23 points and 7 assists, while Delpesh put up a staggering 19 point and 10 rebound double-double. It was, however, a valiant performance from the Manchester Giants, with Jordan Whelan finishing with 29 points, Donovan Marshall-Johnson also getting 20 points, and Sam Cassell Jr. getting 18 points. And it will be a really bitter pill to swallow for Manchester Giants fans, considering that the 2 games that they faced over the weekend were really close in the end, both coming up with losses. Now they find themselves outside of the playoff spots and in a really poor run of form. Also, a massive shout out has to go out to David Orr for putting in a great under the radar performance with 8 points and 12 rebounds, with a huge amount of minutes and no backup in the centre position. Now, I know there is also some bigger breaking news that's happened in the world of Manchester at the moment, but I'll get onto that later in the video. Let's take a little look forward now to this week's fixtures, starting on Wednesday, which will likely be the day that this video goes up. So in case I've missed the score, please don't grill me down in the comments. It's just warning that this is going up on the same day. So we'll start off on the Wednesday, like I say, with Worcester Wolves versus Sheffield Sharks. Then on Friday we have 3 matches, seeing the Newcastle Eagles take on Plymouth Raiders, Cheshire Phoenix playing Leicester Riders, and Worcester Wolves playing Surrey. Then on Saturday, Surrey will play their second game in 2 days against Glasgow Rocks. And then on Sunday, we'll see the first leg of the first game in the trophy semi-finals between London Lions and Glasgow Rocks. Then in the league, Manchester Giants will take on Newcastle Eagles and Cheshire Phoenix will take on the Sheffield Sharks. And if we take a little look at the standings now, you will see that the Leicester Riders, like I've already said, are still at the top with a record of 14 wins and 2 losses. Then if you look down to the final playoff spot, Worcester Wolves are currently in that position, record of 6-9, but also looking to be in very good form, despite only having won 1 of their last 3 league games. Their Americans are really coming into force. Then just below them, we've got Manchester Giants with a record of 6-11. They look to be really struggling at the moment, and obviously the news that I'll talk about later in the video. And then at the bottom, we have the Glasgow Rocks, rock bottom, I guess you could call it. 2-13 and really not looking in form at the moment. So some very tasty matchups and very interesting to see how the trophy games start in the semi-finals. Over the past couple of weeks, coaches have really dominated the headlines in British basketball news. But just before we look into those stories, let's take a look at the newest signing for Worcester Wolves in Elijah Burns. Now, he's an American 6'8" forward who used to play for Siena Saints. He averaged just over 14 points and 5 rebounds, and he'll probably be the guy that Worcester hope comes in and fills that void that Matthew Bryan Marning left when he left and went to Cheshire Phoenix after his short-term contract. Burns then went to play for Bulgarian side BC Rilski Sportist, who also competed in the Europe Cup, which is the cup that London Lions would have been playing for if COVID wasn't a thing. And now onto the coaches, and we have to start with the breaking news that actually is the day that I'm recording this, it came out, so probably yesterday for you guys watching the video. Danny Byrne and Manchester Giants have parted ways. Yes, they've gotten rid of their head coach after a poor run of form in the league, and this is what they had to say on their website. So, the Manchester Giants reluctantly wish to announce that we have parted company with head coach Danny Byrne with immediate effect. Jamie Edwards said this year was about building a culture on and off the floor. There were positive signs early in the season, but recent results have made me believe that we require a fresh approach to achieve this. Danny has been a committed servant of the club over the last 4 years. We thank him for his efforts and we wish him the very best for the future. Byrne was appointed in 2017 and his best season in the 2018-19 campaign when the team reached the semi-finals of both the BBL Trophy and the BBL Cup, just missing out on the playoffs with a 9th placed finish. Plutos Foliotis will prepare the team for this weekend's game as a decision is made on the replacement, and the club won't be making any further statements at this time. Now, yes, Manchester Giants have been on a really poor run of form at the moment, but for me, this still doesn't feel like the right decision. It's too reactionary. They've not taken enough time, I don't think, to make this decision, and for it to be a mid-season departure is something very rare in the BBL. Usually you'd see it at least left to the end of the season, so you know roughly where the team stands and what coach you need to bring in then, and also having more time to bring a coach in to impact the team in pre-season, rather than leaving it in those crucial league games that they could still win and get to the playoffs. Like is also stated in the press release, Danny Byrne, someone who's been at the club for 4 years now, and he's seen that team sort of grow and develop, particularly coming into this season, but also, like it said, when he got them to the semi-finals in both the cup and the trophy. So I don't understand why he isn't that person. He seems to be the person who understands that team really well. It also feels like a really strange decision because of their newest signings in Justin Satchel and Aaron Garamipor. Because bringing those two guys in from San Lorenzo in Argentina is surely going to help bolster the squad. Garamipor is someone who used to play for the Manchester Giants, I think over a decade ago now. And Justin Satchel's only had 2 games, with Garamipor not even having played a game. So to get rid of Danny Byrne without having seen how those guys impact the squad, I think is a really strange decision. Basically what I'm saying is, yeah, despite their poor run of form, I still think it's a bit premature. You need to see how these new guys fit into the team, how the team basically fits around them, see if they fit into the style, because there's every chance that you go on, win a couple of games, and you're way back into contention for the playoffs, potentially even solidifying yourself. So for me, I think it's a strange and also wrong decision from Giants that could potentially put them in a worse off position than where they are now. The next coach we have to talk about is Chris Finch. So Chris Finch used to be a head coach of the Sheffield Sharks back in the early 2000s, and I think also maybe a bit in the late 90s. He's joined the Timberwolves after leaving his role as the assistant head coach of the Toronto Raptors side that's led by Nick Nurse, who's another former BBL head coach. And it's just really good to see that former BBL coaches now have a pathway into the NBA where they can show off their experience, and it proves how vital British basketball is to the rest of the international game and how much we're growing and having an impact on the world of basketball. So that's really positive news to see, especially as we look to build British basketball more and more in the coming years, particularly with Eurobasket 2022, where we now also have to talk about Marc Steutel. Marc Steutel led Team GB to Eurobasket 2022 qualification with 2 massive wins, one against Germany and one against France. I think the one against Germany will be remembered forever for how dramatic it was in a finish, with Luke Nelson winning it with the game-winning layup to beat the buzzer, and then all we needed was France to beat Montenegro, and they cut it fine, but they eventually did it. And then in the game after, we played France and ended up battering them. It may have only been their B team, but it's still a huge result for Team GB. Now, Marc Steutel is only the acting head coach of Team GB, but I think after the performances and after the run that we've had, and now with qualification for Eurobasket, I think it's pretty much time for him to take up the head coach role. It's clear that the players like him, are suited to the style that he wants to play, and they're winning games against big countries, so I think it only makes sense that moving forward, he's the guy for the job. It was also an historic week for Plymouth Raiders fans up and down the country, as they not only played but won their 1000th game in the club's history, beating Glasgow Rocks by a slim margin, only 3 points at 63-60. But not only that, their head coach Paul James also celebrated his 1000th game in charge of a BBL side, also taking a win against Worcester the game before, who just so happened to be one of his former teams. To put that quite frankly mesmerising number into perspective, Paul James has coached almost double the amount of BBL games as Rob Paternostro on his own, Vince McCauley, or even Atiba Lyons, which is just an insane amount of games, considering that those other 3 coaches have been stalwarts in the British Basketball League for the past decade, really. I've had the pleasure of working with but also interviewing Coach PJ over the last year and a half whilst I've been helping out with Plymouth Raiders media team, and it's given me tons of great experience but also a lot of moments like this. So cool, it's the second milestone. And to reach 1000 games is an absolutely staggering figure, and long may his success continue. And that's pretty much all we've got time for the first episode of Court Vision. Remember guys, like I said earlier, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, also like the video if you enjoyed, and leave your comments as to subjects and questions that you'd like me to talk about or answer in future videos. I've been your host Jack Guthrie, and I'll see you in the next episode.